Alright, hi everybody. I just want to show you a quick video on quadratic functions and most importantly inputting values into quadratic functions. We've done some of this with the transformations. It's the same concept. If you have a horizontal or a vertical, or excuse me, a horizontal translation or a horizontal shrink or stretch when you have to plug numbers into the function. But it's always good to review, and more importantly, this last one here, since we have a quadratic function, what we have to do when we put an expression like this, which this would be a shift 3 units to the left if we were talking about horizontal transformations, what happens when we plug it into where we have a squared term. So I'm just going to go through these example number 1, example number 2. Feel free to try it when we're done. We will go over it in class in case you have any questions. So here we go. So if we have this first situation here in part A where it says f of negative 2, what that means is we need to take negative 2 and we need to plug it in for x into our function. So all this is a substitution. So anytime you see something inside of the parentheses, that is what you're going to substitute into the original function in place of x. Everything else is going to stay the same. So if I have f of negative 2, what I need to do is I'm going to write this. This is just kind of notation. Remember, it just means essentially the same thing as y. But the important stuff is on the right-hand side of your equal sign, your equation. And what I'm going to do, as I mentioned earlier to this equation, I'm going to take whatever x is, or excuse me, I'm going to take wherever I have an x, and I'm going to substitute negative 2 in. Notice I kept the 3, notice I kept the squared, and also most importantly, notice I put the negative 2 inside of parentheses. Anytime you substitute a number or something in to a function or an equation, you have to put in parentheses. So that's why the negative 2 goes in parentheses. And then I'm just going to continue on. I have a positive 2x, but I'm going to replace x with negative 2, which is what I just did there. And then finish off your function with minus 5. Okay? Now we need to simplify this thing. So let's go through our order of operations. We have a couple sets of parentheses and some exponents. So I'm going to do my exponents first. So that means that I'm going to take negative 2 and I'm going to square it. Now be very careful. If you do this on your calculator, remember this is negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. If you do it on your calculator, you have to go parenthesis, negative 2, closing parenthesis, and put the squared on the outside of the parentheses. Okay, that will tell your calculator it's negative 2 times negative 2. Alright, I'm just going to rewrite everything down. I know a lot of you can do this in less steps than I can, but I'm just going to write out every step. So I took care of my exponents. Now I'm going to take care of my parentheses, which means multiply. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. And minus 5. And these two numbers come out to be negative 9. And so I add 12 to negative 9, and I get an answer of 3. Now when we write our final answer, we want to write f of 2, negative 2, excuse me. Let me try that again. F of negative 2 equals 3. This is just notation. We could say that y equals 3 when x equals negative 2, or we could also write it as a coordinate. Alright, either one of those are fine. Usually with functions we leave it like this one right here. Okay? Alright, let's take a look at example B, which is 4x. We're going to use the same process. We're going to substitute 4x in for the x into our function. So let me do that. So I'm going to go 3 parentheses times 4x squared, notice the 4x is in parentheses, plus 2 times 4x minus 5. I'm going to write out all the steps once again, so I'm going to take care of my exponents first. So I'm going to have 3 times 16x squared. 4 times 4 is 16, x times x is x squared. Alright? Plus 2 times 4x, and then minus 5. Now we can go ahead and multiply. So we got 3 times 16, which is 48. So 48x squared, plus 8x minus 5. And now we have to look to see if we have any like terms, which we don't. There are no like terms here. So this is simplified as much as possible. So that should actually be f of 4x right there. So our final answer, f of 4x equals 48x squared plus 8x minus 5. Okay. All right, last one. This last one is where we substitute an expression in for x. The first step is going to be very much the same. The second step is going to be very much the same, but there's some nuances to that second step because we have an expression. So let's take care of the first step. F of x plus 3 equals 3, and then I'm going to put x plus 3 here in parentheses, quantity squared, plus 2 times x plus 3 minus 5. So you can see my first step is exactly the same. I substituted x plus 3 in for x. Excuse me. Now, where the nuance is right here, where you have that expression x plus 3, the quantity squared. We talked about that in class today. What does that really mean? That means that is x plus 3 times x plus 3. And how do we multiply those? You need to use either magic squares or you need to use the vertical alignment method. I'm going to use magic squares. So I set up my 2 by 2 box. I put x plus 3 here. I put x plus 3 on the side. Excuse me. And I multiply. So I have x squared, 3x, 3x, and 9. And then my final simplified answer is x squared plus 6x plus 9. So that means in my next step that instead of writing x plus 3, the quantity squared, I'm going to substitute it in with x squared plus 6x plus 9 because that's the expanded form of this. So what does my next step look like? I got to keep my 3. I got to put all of this in parentheses. X squared plus 6x plus 9. And I'm just going to rewrite everything else like I did before. So I've taken care of my parentheses there. Excuse me, my exponents there. I've taken care of my exponents. Now I can take care of my parentheses. I go 3 times all of this, so that's the distributive property. So 3x squared, 18x plus 27. And then plus 2x plus 6 and minus 5. And now we have to look for like terms. You can see I only have 1x squared there, so my final answer is going to be f of x plus 3 equals 3x squared. That term right there. Let's look for x's. I got 18x there and 2x there. That's 20x. And then 27 plus 6 minus 5 is going to be 28. And there is my final answer. Okay. Key thing in this one right here, x plus 3, the quantity squared, means I have to do the boxes or the vertical alignment, whichever one you want to do. All right, we'll go over number 2 tomorrow in class.